it serious for once. All right, so thanks for hanging out today. Thanks for watching this on the replay. What if you're watching the replay in the future sometime? I am James from ALTInsider.com, ALTInsider Resume Review.com, here with the JET Programme Q&A. That means question and answer session, because the deadlines are, they're fast approaching for most everybody. Definitely in the next month or so for everybody. So you got to get on that. If you are interested in joining the JET program, of course. If you're not interested in the JET program, thanks for watching, I guess. But there's probably some other stuff you could watch that's maybe better. I don't know. I might edit this out too. Who knows? But we are gonna get on Jason on the phone here. I feel like a real radio show now. I got to vamp for 10 minutes before I can call Jason. But we're gonna get Jason, Myargonauts. If you don't know Myargonauts, you should, because he has a lot of stuff about JET program, like hundreds and hundreds of videos. He's really what I watched before I even got to Japan. I watched his videos, so that shows how long he's been on the internet. And he's done everything in the JET program. Like, he's done interviews, he's done all kinds of stuff. I don't know, more than that. I'm gonna ask him though. He's done all kinds of stuff. Excuse me. He's done all kinds of stuff about being on the JET program. It's incredible. So like, if you are in the JET program and you want to be on the JET program, you need to watch his stuff. That's why I got him on here. And we still have to kill 10 minutes before I call him. So things I wanted to hit on before we get to that. Tomorrow on the website, ALTInsider.com, I have a post coming up about the final in a series of articles about So You Want to Work in Japan. So it starts with number one was, your options for work in Japan, Kaiwa, ALT, JET, direct hire, all that kind of stuff. The second one was about how to make your resume. The third was about the interview. And the third was about resume. Fourth was about interview. And now, tomorrow, making its live and debut, it's all about preparing for your life in Japan. So kind of, what should you bring? What should you not bring? Get the mental stuff right so you don't end up staying too long or not having Japan live up to your expectations, that kind of stuff. So that's going to be on the site tomorrow in the morning, 8:30. That's when all my posts go live. Also, let's see. Also, on this Friday, interview with someone working in Japan, not as an English teacher. He is in the HR world in Tokyo. So that was a pretty cool interview. I don't want to spoil too much because, I should spoil it because you guys are the true peeps that are hanging out today in this live stream space. But that should be cool too. Let's see. What else do I want to say before we get to Jason on the phone? Basically, I don't know. Basically, that's it. Basically, I gotta wait for him. I'm gonna send him a message right now. You can watch this live. I'm gonna cut this out of the live. I'm gonna cut this out of the final video too. So this is another. Oh, there's my voice on here. Another free bonus content. Bonus content's coming out my ears here. Let's get Jason on there so we can start the shindig proper, shall we? Let's see if we can get this thing going. Let's do all these. Yep. Okay, now you are live and you should be right there. Now it's you. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing well.
And I'm going to add myself to this too, so it's not just a big Jason all the time. Let's get it more of a... Okay, there we go. Now we're both there and we're both chilling.
Okay.
And we are good. And let me make it a little bit smaller so I can see what the chat is going on. And back to big. Okay, this is all going to be cut out. Scout's Rage, how's you doing? Thanks for the smiley face. Welcome. Welcome in. So, we're almost down to the, Jason, I know your first time you applied was, a few years ago now, fair safe to say.
Yeah, it was obviously the end of 2003 for the 2004 intake.
So when you did it, it was obviously not online or anything, right?
No.
Yeah.
Not yet.
So, it might be a little different. You had to worry about all your paper clips and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, everything, all the forms. You had to send in 3 copies of everything, so I guess they could put it into 3 different envelopes.
It was a little bit of a different thing, yeah. So
yeah.
Okay, so we are all set up here, I think. Let me know if the sound is a little bit low on anyone's end. Scout's Rage. If you can hear Jason, that's great. Let me know. But first I want to go through. Jason was on the podcast a while ago, almost more than a year ago, and we talked about JET a little bit, not too much though. So I want to get a little deeper since we're almost to the kind of American deadline. Actually, it's not too long from now. Um,
Right.
so yeah, first let's go through why should we listen to you? Why are you, as I say, a legend? You say old, but why what have you done in the JET program, and what's your kind of history with the JET program?
Well, I wasn't anything that special in the sense of my ALT tenure, but I was one of the first people, I guess, really to sort of treat Jet seriously and in depth on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So I made videos going back to 2008 is when I started talking about Jet on YouTube, and there wasn't really a lot of other people talking about it in any kind of like this is what you should do step by step type of a thing like you do now.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people, have told me over the years that, hey, I watched your videos or I saw one of your videos and it helped me get into the program or I'm a Jet now because, and that's all very, very amazing and gratifying. Um, and I was in Shamane Ken where I was placed. I was the first ALT to stay 5 years at one school. They changed the rule in 2007 when I was a Jet. Before that, you could stay 3 years, and then you had to become an elementary only ALT.
And then so you got to do the full 5.
And in my third year, they changed it and said if they like you and they want to keep you, and you like them, obviously, you can stay at the junior high or wherever the high school that you're at, and just serve out your 5 years is still the maximum at one school. And so I was the first Jet to do that. And there was one CIR who also stayed 5 years from the 2004 class. So, yeah, now I think, with the way the economy is, I think a few people are taking the 4 and 5 year option, but I think most Jets still stay 2 or 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then after you finish the JET program, you still stay connected with the JET program in other ways, correct?
Yeah, well, I immediately, almost immediately, it felt like came back to Japan and got a job in the same prefecture, Shimane-kan, very rural prefecture, working at a university. So I was in a different city though, so I got involved with the local Jet community there. Obviously, still knew the prefecture people from when I was a Jet only a year previously, and stayed at that job for another 5.5 years. So I spent over 10 years in Shimane-kan. And now I'm at a new job at a high school again. The first time I've ever taught at a high school, but it's a private high school, and I'm teaching history instead of English.
And I believe you also got into like kind of the JET alumni program and stuff while you're back in America for that short time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I thought about actually when I was in back in America for the 1 year in between. I thought actually I was going to apply to be the Jet coordinator for Tennessee and moved to Nashville.
Okay.
Um, but I was honestly so poor that they said, "Well, to do it, we'd like you to apply, but you have to fly yourself out here for the interview." And I literally just said, "No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to spend $800 or whatever it would have been." But I got involved in the Southern California Alumni Association. I did some Jet interviews. I went out to college campuses and sat at the little table and handed out brochures and talked to people about Jet, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I think you've done pretty much everything you can do in Jet, pretty much. I think so that's why he's on here today because he's been around the block a few times. He knows what he's talking about. He's also been in, I like you've been in part of the hiring process too, so that's huge. For the people that are going to watch this. So let's go a little quick interview with you, just a little bit more into your history and stuff. So what made you decide on the JET program in the first place to come to Japan?
No huge motivation. I'm a little older. I was just turning 35 years old when I got accepted and I was coming to Japan in 2004. So unlike a lot of Jets, I wasn't really influenced by video games or anime or manga. I had read a book when I was a youngster called Shogun by James Clavell. That really got me interested in Japan. And then when I was in college, I minored in Japanese studies and had real, I just wanted to come to Japan and visit. And then I saw a thing on my college campus. Hey, are you interested in going and teaching abroad in Japan? And so I went to the information session in like October, and they're like, okay, and it's all due like November 30th. So I had like a month to put it all together. It was crazy. And of course, there was no information online practically at that point. Um, and Yeah, I had broken up with a girl that I'd been going out with for a long time. Didn't really have any reason to stick around California at that time, and I just said, let's take an adventure,
Yeah.
and turned out to be something I loved.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, I mean, I know it's a long time ago, but do you remember what you wrote in your first statement of purpose?
Oh wow.
Just the main theme, was it, did you, hit the four kind of questions and stuff, or?
They weren't even that specific back then. I remember talking about wanting to come over, how I had minored and was a history major and minored in studies. So I wanted to learn more about Japanese history, learn the language. And I think I hit the what I will give to the program, what the program will give back to me button pretty well. And yeah, I think I just was, you know, I can write a good essay. I was always good in English. And being a history major, you write a lot of papers. So my essay writing skills were always good. And I, for 2 pages, I can knock that out. So I don't remember exactly what I wrote, but it was probably pretty good, to be honest.
Yeah.
Not tooting my own horn too much.
This was before, like you said, I'm sure the internet was not filled with different advice. You kind of do what you think is right.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys. When did you do Jet, James?
I never did yet, so I'm just that's why you're
Oh,
here.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there used to be a website, and I'm sure you've heard of it. It was called Big Daikon.
Yeah, that was a classic one.
Daikon is a radish. So it was the only real board at the time, and it was filled with a lot of really negativity. A lot of people that went on there were just bitter, and so it was hard to get good, clear advice on things. And But you could find little nuggets. But yeah, it was really difficult back then.
Yeah, yeah, it was a different world, that's for sure. But so
Sure, for sure.
people, a lot of questions I get are about references. So do you remember who you got for your letters of recommendation?
Absolutely. I got my at the time, like I said, I was minoring in Japanese studies. So although he laughed at me when I told him that I wanted to do jet, because I think he knew, like, I didn't really kind of grasp how much they put you in rural areas and what rural Japan was really like.
Mm-hmm.
Two big movies had just come out in 2003, Lost in Translation and The Last Samurai. And so a mixture of that is going through my brain, perhaps, of
Yeah.
like what Japan might be like. Um, and So anyway, so I asked the professor who I had to turn in my Japanese studies dissertation to, and he wrote me. Well, it's sealed. I never did actually see it, but I think he wrote a fairly, because I was a pretty good student in his class. And then the other one was during the university, I went back to my old high school, and one of my teachers conned me into coaching the kind of academic teams at the school, the buzzer team and the academic decathlon team.
Okay.
So she wrote about how, I was, a role model and a teacher and this and that. And I know she wrote me a good essay as well. So two good letters of rec for
Yeah, yeah,
sure.
yeah. Two solid. That sounds like two solid ones. So
Yeah.
for the lucky few that are listening that are going to get to the interview, what kind of was the interview kind of like it is now, or what was the interview process like for you?
Well, I'm not too sure about what it's like now. I haven't talked to anybody recently. I used to interview newer Jets when they would come over and say, "Hey, what was the interview like? Did it change?" And I know there's some regional differences, like in the UK, it's different than America, and it's perhaps different than Australia, etc. But I think in general, it kind of stays the same. The wisdom is, if you get to the interview, it's your job to lose.
Yeah, yeah,
That you passed all the big hurdles. Now they just want to see that you're a functioning, speaking human being that is not, really looks good on paper, but in real life, you're just some spastic idiot.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and that holds up a little bit for when I did my interviews. We had a guy who looked really good on paper. Now I was interviewing CIRs the one time I did it, but when he came in, to be honest, he was not. How should I say this in BPC?
Just let it
He
fly.
was he was Asian American. Let's just say that he wasn't Japanese American, but he was Asian American,
Okay.
but very fresh Asian American, if you know what I mean. And his accent was very thick, and you couldn't understand his English very
Okay.
well. He spoke it and wrote it, everything, but it was really hard. And for him to get up and represent America, quote unquote, and to have to speak English and have people follow along with him, and when you're a CIR, you have to do instant translation sometimes and interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so anyway, it just sort of quashed his hopes. The fact that he couldn't really, and he was also sort of fidgety and like not very confident. So even though on paper his essay was probably fantastic, he had good grades and this and that and the other. When you met him in person, you're just like, he's definitely
Okay.
not the top of my list. So that's sort of what the interview is about. You go in, you chat a little bit. Everybody always thinks they mess up. I thought I had totally, screwed up my interview by, they asked me, what holiday would you teach elementary school kids? And of course, you should pick, Christmas or Halloween or something fun with costumes and stuff. I picked the 4th of July and talked about the Constitution for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
My history major took over, and it was just ridiculous. But everything else in my interview was wonderful.
Okay.
So, you think you've really screwed up, but most of the time you probably haven't.
Okay. So then you obviously got the job, so you got to Japan. People were really worried about what's it like when you first get there? What was kind of your first month like? Paraphrase obviously. What was kind of was it what you expected? Was it different
Yeah,
than you expected?
the big thing I guess is again in 2004, you type Shimane into Google, there's almost nothing in English. Now, every prefecture probably has an English homepage or something.
Uh-huh.
So I knew very little about where I was going. And again, I thought that most of Japan was like Tokyo. That even though I knew it wasn't like Tokyo in the sense of all the people, I thought everywhere would have big buildings, Shinkansen trains. You know, I had grown up in Dallas, Texas, and San Diego, California, two big cities. I had never lived in anywhere small, and I got plopped, in a town of about 16,000 people, where I'm the only foreigner, and it's just completely rural and old people and rice paddies and no tall buildings and one lane roads, and that kind of culture shock I think was bigger than, oh my god, everybody speaks Japanese. you know I had taken the language for a year in college, so I at least had my greetings down. I could read hiragana. I wasn't completely out of it, as far as like understanding what was going on. But yeah, it was just adjusting to small town life was probably bigger for me than adjusting to quote unquote Japanese life.
Yeah, and also, and you kind of like took that kind of living in the serious Sinaka, which is the countryside, to do more stuff with your schools, correct? More than just like stay in your apartment and watch movies, or how did you kind of do with your free time?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, yeah, I mean, there wasn't like, Netflix, iTunes, all these things where you can get movies now, blah, blah, blah. We were still renting DVDs, and I had no car at first. I only had a scooter. Um, Most people have a bicycle, and that's fine, but I'm fat. So bicycle wasn't good for me. Um, so yeah, I just, the nearest jet was about 15 minutes away by scooter. So I wasn't like in a housing complex with all these other jets or even like near other jets. So I would see them on the weekends maybe. But during the week, it was just me. And I just decided to, spend as much time as I could with my kids, um, as seemed appropriate and doable. And then when I got my car in my second year as a jet, I really just went crazy. I drove all over the prefecture, um, going to concerts and tournaments and matches and all kinds of stuff. So the kids really started to get to know me, and I think that interaction you have outside of the classroom is more important than what you do in the classroom when you're in ALT, especially at the junior high level, where you're not doing anything ground shifting with,
Yeah, that's for
with
sure.
your work.
Yeah.
In elementary, you can kind of shape your lessons a little bit because the teachers are more trusting. And at high school, you can actually kind of plan things. But in the middle, they really just, teach to a book, and they're teaching for a test. And, you're helpful, but you're not really changing. You're not teaching them anything necessarily.
Yeah, and at the very least, you remember your times outside the classroom more than in, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
For
And
sure.
the kids, they start to see you as not a foreigner or not, a strange, tall, big guy. You're a human being. You like this, you don't like this, you eat this, you don't eat that, and um, they'll come up and they'll try to use English. And my Japanese at that time, especially, wasn't very good. So even if I'd wanted to chat with them kind of surreptitiously in Japanese, I wouldn't have been able to very well. It got better over time, of course, and you learn how to say the specific questions, that pertain to, like, nani o, nani sports wa suki desu ka,
Yeah.
whatever it is, so you can, have those little chats that you can have with a 12 or 13-year-old. But yeah, my Inaka-ness probably did. If I had been in, an hour away by train from Kobe or Osaka or Nagoya, I'm sure I would have had more of a quote unquote life, and I would have done more fun stuff. But at the same time, I wouldn't have been as available for school. And I think the latter was more important in the end.
Yeah, I think, and you still, Jason is like example of if you the time you put into your schools, you get and your students you get back. I think because you're still like friends with some of your students and stuff, right? That's crazy. Like you went to a wedding and stuff. I saw on your social media stuff.
Yeah, just recently, I got a picture from one of the best kids I ever met at my junior high, Hitoshi, who had lived in Pennsylvania for a couple of years. And when I first arrived, he was an eighth grader and on the kendo team. And he, being able to speak English as well as he did, we could actually have little conversations in English, which was amazing. And he got me involved in kendo. And then years later, I would talk to him on Facebook and stuff about college and this and that. And he just recently got married, and now he just sent me a picture of his baby. He just had a boy, and it's just like, and you realize, okay, well, I first met him and he was probably 14, 15. So now he's 24, 25, and that's life. The cycle goes on, and it's just amazing to me. And I'm hoping to maybe go see him over the winter break if he's going to come back to Shimane, and I'm going to go to Shimane. His parents still live there. So yeah, it's great to stay in touch with certain kids and see them through life, and it's just it's one of the wonderful perks.
Yeah, if you put the time in, a lot of people don't put in the time you did and don't get the same back. So that's kind of if it's worth it if you do it.
Yeah, you've got it. I mean, if you're going to come to Japan, and I know there's all kinds of reasons people come, and there's all kinds of reasons people leave. But if you can try to right away think, okay, I'm gonna spend 2 years. You can't really have any impact or be effective in 1 year. You get a little taste of what Japan's like, but your kids will never remember you. You can think that whatever, but you would just be another face in the long line of gaijin that they see.
Yeah.
And 2 years, you get a full calendar school year. You get, you're kind of 2/3 of the way through your first year is March, and school will start, and then you'll have graduation the next March, and then maybe you'll go home that July. So you get that 1 year, and that 1 year you do everything, with those kids. You do their sports day, their bunkasai, all the different events and everything. And then you really kind of, I think, feel like you've been part of it. And I recommend. Obviously, I stayed 5 years. Maybe that's too much for some people, but try to stay two. I really, everything, when it happens that second time, you're ready for it. You know what's coming. You can be better at it the second time around. So it's just really beneficial if you can do that.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, so let's get to some of the questions I got from the email for you. I got over 20 questions. We'll see how many we can get through in 20
Ooh,
minutes or
boy.
so.
Okay.
So first, though, to say thanks to everyone who sent questions. I had to cut some down because they're very specific. So like if you're really specific, I wrote back to you though. So hopefully you got your question answered. But these are kind of questions that can help everyone. So
Okay.
some are pretty specific, some are just wide ranging. So here we go.
Okay.
Jason, what's your opinion on this? How many shoes should I bring to Japan? I've heard some people say bring all the shoes you need, and some people say just bring one and buy them when you get here. What would your advice be on that?
Okay, well, obviously, I'll talk as a male. I can't really advise women because there's all kinds of shit
Yeah.
happening there. But the basic thing is you need, I met some ALTs, like in Tokyo and then like at orientation, and they had sneakers on with like a suit.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like, what is that? Like you're an adult, it's a job, have a nice pair of shoes. It can be like Skechers or, something, but definitely no laces, slip on that you can take them on and off easily. A sturdy pair of leather or whatever you want to call them, black shoes. Okay, you got to have that. Bring a pair of, if you're, especially now, see, I'm 6 feet tall. My feet aren't particularly big. I'm like a size 11 in America, 11, 11 and a half. And that's about the limit, the upper limit of what you can buy in a normal store here, 28 centimeters. So if your feet are bigger than that, you will have a hard time buying shoes here. So you definitely then do need to think about bringing more shoes. But slippers that you can take to your school, and this can be a lot of different things. It can be like flip-flops or whatever, open-toe sandal, something that you can put on that's your indoor shoe. And then a pair of sneakers or something to wear at the weekend or when you're going to go do sports or something. And like I have a pair of Vans. I have like 4 pairs of shoes. I don't, I'm not a huge shoe person. You will need, depending on where you're put, you maybe need something for the snow or, weather. But, you can always get stuff sent, but shoes are weird. You kind of want to try on shoes before you buy them, right?
Yeah.
So,
So you can't really go on just say go buy it online.
yeah, it's a little bit more difficult to buy and have them sent or whatever. But almost everybody, when they're a Jet, especially in your first year, you get those pangs of homesickness. You're probably going to go home,
Yeah.
either for spring break or the summer in between your first and second year. You can last for a year, if you got a good pair of shoes, and then buy shoes when you go back to your home country.
Yeah. Basically, don't. I think just don't worry about it too much.
Yeah, I really, if you're bringing more than 4 pairs of shoes with you, that's too many.
Yeah, yeah. And also
Yeah.
for the inside shoes, again, the inside shoes you can definitely buy at stores in Japan, no matter where you are,
Yes.
pretty much. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
like Jason said, the business shoes, don't go to the Jet meeting in sneakers. It happens too much, and people
It's
get shocked. people,
Yeah.
people forget it's a job. But
Right.
all right, let's go to the next one. What should I do if I have literally 0 references? He says a little bit more, but he went to college a while ago and he has 0 references. He says, what should he do in that case?
Well, I don't believe that, first of all. If I were to talk to this guy, I bet you I could suss out who his references should be. He's either got a manager. I mean, he's got to be working, right?
You think?
So he's
Yeah.
got a manager now of his current job. He's got a manager of a semi-recent job that maybe likes him better or something. He has a professor that he went to college with. Maybe he wasn't that close to any of them, but like I said, it could be an acquaintance that knows you in some professional capacity, like you volunteered with them or you were the little league coach of their son, or I mean, there's so many things that could work. You just got to really be creative and think of some people.
Yeah, like I said, like anyone counts as a reference pretty much. So if they have a job in anything, you can kind of, if you have to, you can ask them.
Yeah, and they have to know you and have known you in some capacity that relates to Jet, meaning you worked with children, you were in some kind of position of authority, you were a student of theirs, you were a worker of their, something like that. They can't just be, your mother's sister's aunt who thinks you're cute, and pinches your cheeks when she sees you. But yeah, I mean,
I think
I
everyone can
really
find
do
someone.
think
Yeah.
he could find someone if he thought about it for a few minutes.
So this person, you can find someone. That's the answer. Number 3 is, I'm 46. Do you think I still have a shot at the Jet program or not?
No. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm old. I'm 47 now. First of all, you wouldn't want to necessarily do jet at 46.
Yeah, that's what that's my thought.
Um, it you would be surrounded. I mean, I was 35. I think at it we had 85 to 90 ALTs in Shimane around the time I was a jet. I think only about 5 of us were over the age of 30. The vast majority of jets are 24 to 26, right in there. So you'd be surrounded by people 20 years younger than you. Um, and even if you're a youthful person or you're single and outgoing and whatever, it's just odd, let me tell you. And the schools don't really, I mean, you might get a job at a high school or something, but they don't really, they want younger people that are more relatable in age to the children. And I think one thing that I did do well in my interview is I was ganky and outgoing, and I'm very sort of child within. I love superheroes and Star Wars and, all these kinds of things. I've never really become a real adult yet. So I don't know, the unofficial unspoken rule is 40. Is 40 is the cutoff. I did have a new ALT while I was in Shimane who came, and in his first year he was 38, and that's the oldest I've ever known. So I've known jets who are older than 40, because if he stayed 5 years, he would have been about 43 when he finished. But I've never known a jet over 40 who started.
Yeah, I think we're not even talking about the think of, do you really want to work for, the jet program when you're 46 or something? Like, the pay is not like great,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I, yeah. And you're an assistant. The chances of the teacher that's going to be in charge of you most of the time being younger than you would be high. It's not that it's a great job for people right out of college, especially people who want to travel and stuff. For me, because I wanted to be a teacher, that's why I did it. And I screwed around all of my 20s and didn't get my degree from college until I was 34. So for me at that time, I was like, oh, I want to become a teacher. Oh, let me go do this for a year, little knowing that I would stay. Let me go do this for a year to get some experience before I get my credential. And so it made perfect sense to me, even though I was old. But yeah, 40, 46. I'm sorry, dude.
All right, you heard it here first. Sorry, dude. Let's get serious, though. We get more serious. I have a serious car accident on my record, and it is on my record as my fault. Do I put that on my application? The part where you got to say, do you have any criminal history, or whatever? What would you do to that? What would you say to that person?
Oh man, I get these all the time too from my Facebook page.
Yeah.
If you feel like you could leave it off and it won't be found out, I would leave it off.
Yeah.
You don't want to be caught in a lie, because that's as bad as, what am I trying to say? That's as bad as not telling it, or something. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but anyway, you don't want to leave. You don't want to be caught, lying, but at the same time, it's not really important to what you're going to be doing. It was a one-time thing. I'm hoping you had an accident. It was your fault, assuming that alcohol wasn't involved.
Yeah, sure. That's a big one.
Because that's a whole nother thing, and Japan is so strict on that. You could come to jet and not even drive a car your whole 2, 3, 4 years. You don't have to drive to be a jet. So I don't think it's that pertinent. So in that respect, I would say it's okay to maybe try not to mention it. But I don't know what the applications are like now. I don't know what kind of background check they do on applicants. I have no clue. So yeah, you can leave it off, and then maybe that would be the point at the interview where they would say, okay, James, we saw here on your application that you didn't mention this thing that we found out, is that you had a serious car accident, caused by you. Why didn't you tell us about this, up front? And then you'd have to have a good reason.
I think if they ask that question, you're already done, I think.
I think so.
Yeah. All right, so that's enough for that one. Here we go. I don't have a okay. I don't have any place I really want to be placed. That's not the right wording, but here, I'm reading it as it's written here. I don't have a place I want to be placed in Japan. Is it okay to not put anything, or does it kind of look like I haven't researched anything?
Right. Second answer. Put something.
Yeah.
Think about it. Look at a map. what kind of weather do you like? Do you want to be in warmer weather? Pick somewhere down in Kyushu or where I am in the Chugoku region. Do you like winter? Do you like snow? Maybe pick somewhere in the north. Pick somewhere. I picked Kobe, Hiroshima, and Fukuoka, all big cities because I'd heard of them, and all in the South. When I went to my interview, they even asked me. They said, "Jason, why did you pick these three places?" I said, "Because I lived in Dallas and San Diego. I've never seen snow. Please don't put me in Hokkaido." Um, I said, I don't, I know. And they laughed. They said, "Well, you realize it snows everywhere in Japan." And I
Yeah.
said, "I know, but not, not as much, in the South as it does in the North." And so that's probably one of the reasons they put me in Shimane, um, which is nowhere near pretty much any of those places. But, at least it was a reason for them to ask me a question and to talk in the interview. And, some people have very specific reasons about, they did a homestay here, blah, blah, blah. If you don't have a reason like that, that's fine. But just say, "Oh, I'd like to know more about this city. Maybe I'll live an hour away by train and I can go visit, Hiroshima and blah, 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 or Himeji or wherever it is." And so it's something, again, to talk about in your interview that shows a level of interest in Japan beyond just, "I want to go to Japan."
Yeah, so definitely put something and have any kind of reason is fine. I think as long as you have
Yeah.
a reason that's not just like
Yeah.
something stupid. Okay, next one. Let's go to that one's kind of skip. Okay, so is your job after JET important to mention on your SOP? I want to be something that's totally not a teacher, but was told writing what you will do after the JET program is very important. Should I lie and say something that has to do with teaching, or should I tell the truth, which has nothing to do with teaching?
Well, I wouldn't lie. I think that whole thing, I think, is, look, the thing that they get out of Jet, the people that pay to fly you over here and fly you home again and everything, is they get ambassadors to Japan. When things like the tsunami happened and all this information was floating around world media, who were the people that were, calling in and writing in and texting and saying, "No, look, you're saying this wrong, or this part of Japan is not anywhere near that part of Japan"? It was former Jets. A lot of us come over here and we end up loving it. And even if we go back to our home country, which most of us do, we are forever going to be the kind of person like, "Oh, you're going to take a vacation? You should really think about Japan. I lived there for a few years. It's amazing, blah, blah, blah." That's what they want. They want those little ambassadors all over the world that, have a good time here. So what you've got to say in that part of your SOP is you've got to impress upon them that you're going to take away something and possibly be able to disseminate it amongst the masses upon your return. So, I'd like to stay actively involved when I get back with the alumni chapter so I can, help other people come to Japan, or, blah, 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 something. And if your job is not going to be teaching or something where I can tell my students about my time in Japan and blah, blah,
Mm.
blah, you know, I think there are other ways you could say that you're going to use your time as on Jet. You didn't just go over because you wanted to, go to Thailand and Korea and
Yeah,
and stuff during your breaks.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, you just be creative, and yeah, I don't think they expect a lot of people to go into teaching. I mean, your degree can be in anything. You can be a biologist, a dentistry major, a
Mm-hmm.
lawyer. So, but just those little bits where, my I noticed that my local community has a Sakura festival in April. So when I go back to my hometown, I'd love to get involved in that and, tell people about my experiences living in Japan, blah, 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 blah.
There you go. There, yeah, that's a good answer. So you make you can always find a link somehow. I think.
Yeah.
Let's do a few more here. This is a good one. The people I asked to do a letter of recommendation asked me what they should highlight in their letters. Is it okay for me to tell them what to highlight, or is that cheating?
No, absolutely.
So what would you
I
have
mean,
them highlight?
you could write it for them and have them sign it. I mean, that's probably not the best thing to do, but I'm sure it's been done. Um, yeah, I mean, you certainly, if it's been a while since you've seen this person, maybe they're a professor 4 years ago for you, and or they know nothing. When you say jet program, they've never heard of it. They've never been to Japan. Um, they just want to highlight your strengths, and you have to explain to them, I'm applying for a job where I'm going to be involved with children. I'm going to be a teacher, a mentor, a cultural ambassador. Anything you think, any of my strengths or personality traits that you feel like lends itself well to these things, could you please mention? um, and you could say, for example, you know when I knew James in college, he was a very devout student and always inquiring. But I also know that he volunteered to help uh, mentor kids who also play the trumpet and wanted to join the brass band at the university when they became students. Anything like that that they can mention and say goes a long way.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Let's go. I think yeah, like it's okay to do it, but obviously you wouldn't tell them you did it. You know what I mean? Like it's like as long as they're not gonna find out, you like it's okay to tell them what to highlight. That's like the least of the thing. I definitely know some people that do that thing like you said. I write it, then you sign it. So
Yeah.
don't worry about it too
I mean,
much.
that they shouldn't do that, but you can definitely. Somebody just asked me on my channel. They are working in Korea now, and they want to apply to JET. Can they have the person write the letter of rec in Korean? And I was like, wow, that's a good question. I don't think so.
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't
it
think
has to
so.
either be in English or Japanese. Um, so, he was like, wow, I don't know if they could write it in English and blah, blah, blah. So, there's all kinds of weird situations out there. But
Yeah.
yeah, what can I say? There are people at the embassies, wherever you're going to go through to get to JET, who should be able to answer those kind of really specific questions.
Yeah, that's
The
another
JET
thing.
liaison person, and hopefully they're a good person, and they're helpful, and you can rely on them to help you.
Let's go through. I have no teaching experience at all.
Hmm.
What should I put in my relevant experience section of my application?
Okay, well, first of all, the question you're going to get at interview, and you better be ready, is, so why do you want to become an ALT?
Mm,
You've never taught before. Um, you've got your degree is in chemistry. What the hell, do you want to go teach English for? So you need an answer for that, and that might provide you with something you could put. Hopefully, you've had some kind of experience. You were in charge of a group of exchange students when they came over to your university, and they were from China or Japan or Taiwan, or it can be Mexico, for it doesn't matter. You traveled to somewhere when you were younger, and it doesn't even have to be Japan, but maybe it helps if it's in Asia, and so you've always wanted to go back. um, but relevant experience, I guess, is more the thing. Obviously anything, like you were a lifeguard, you were a Girl Scout, Boy Scout type of thing,
mm-hmm.
Anything where you're working with children, in charge of children. I put down that I was, when I went to community college on my way to going back to UCSD, um, I went to a college in Oakland, California, where the majority of the students were African American and their essay writing skills were very poor. And I worked in like a peer to peer tutoring center. And so they're not children, but I was helping them and teaching them, if you will, how to write, effective essays, or editing their essays and showing them how to write them better. Anything like that,
Yeah.
that you've got, is going to help. So, you know, most Jets have never taught before, and like you said, not a lot of them want to be teachers when they finish Jet. But you'd be surprised what you've done in your life, perhaps, that would qualify and be relevant.
And let me check with the thing I sometimes recommend. What do you think about this? So, like, obviously teaching, training, all that kind of stuff is definitely relevant experience. What about like office work? Like, you working in an office, is that relevant? Would you say that's relevant or not? Because sometimes you got to go to the BOE and stuff like that. It's kind of a weak link,
Yeah.
right?
No,
He says
I
no.
don't know. That would definitely be like, if you have one space left and you feel like you got to fill it in, type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand where you're going with it, and how there is a certain amount of office work type of mentality involved, but
Leave it off.
it doesn't set you apart, I don't think. I mean, the whole point of the the application is to try to find ways in there that make yours better or different than the other 50 that person is going to read that week.
Yeah, definitely.
You
Yeah,
know?
that makes sense.
So, yeah.
All right, so let's get to one final question. Thanks, Jason,
All
for your
right.
time tonight. I think we answered a lot of questions, helped a lot of people's.
Do we have any comments on YouTube? I'm not really watching YouTube.
We got some funny ones, but not some serious ones, guys.
Okay.
If you have a serious question, shoot it on over.
Well, I'll take a funny one if it's
He said, "Don't wear sneakers with suits unless you're a teacher in Japan, because everyone else is.
Oh,
You know, all the real Japanese teachers, they always wear sneakers. You know,
yeah.
they're going to be way less dressed than you are. That's for sure. If you work at elementary school, especially,
Yeah.
it's like they come in like tracksuits and Crocs, and that's like their normal wear.
Yeah.
That's dressed
I
up.
went to school now where I have to wear a necktie every day.
Okay.
Because the students have to wear, as part of their school uniform. It's a private school, so they have to wear a necktie and a blazer. So I hate it, but it's not during the summer. We just finished Cool Biz.
Oh yeah. That's kind of a new thing, right? Cool Biz, like actually in practice.
Yeah, where you could wear short sleeves and open neck and stuff like that. But the kids get to as well. They get to wear a different shirt with short sleeves and stuff. Yeah, it's a necktie every day for me and a suit coat a lot of the times if we have school assemblies or things going on at the weekend.
Okay, it's
So
a different world than ALT. Huh?
yeah.
Let's get. Oh, we got here. Here we go. This is a hopeful 20-year-old jet. So let's hit a question for Mr. Scout Rage here. What
All right.
advice would you give them? What's something they can get on in the last 2 years of their? Let's say they're graduating 2 years. What's something they
Okay.
could do to make their resume better? I mean, not a resume, application better.
Yeah. Well, the obvious thing would be if they haven't already, try to find ways to have something relevant to put in that related work field. Volunteer with the local Boys and Girls Club. Do, like I said, volunteer at your own university to interact or guide around school, visiting students from other countries or something. Um, Anything like that you can do to show you're interested in helping other people and especially younger people. That helps. If you have room for it in your schedule, uh, take a Japanese class.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, if you get
It
it
will
definitely
pay
helps.
off in ways you would not even understand now, and or it doesn't even have to be Japanese language. A lot of colleges offer Japanese literature, Japanese politics, whatever it is,
Yeah,
whatever kind of interests you. That kind of a credit on your resume or application rather looks good. So, there are things you can do. Go abroad for 3 weeks in the summer or something. Say, it doesn't have to be to Japan. Say I went to Italy for 3 weeks. Things like that show you can adapt to living somewhere else.
yeah,
So many Americans have never been on a plane before, never used their passport before. Um, you know, those are not exactly the people Jet wants. They can work out and be fine, of course, but if you can show that you've traveled a little bit and done some things like that, that's also really good.
yeah. She asked if we're both from America. I know the answer is yes, and she is graduating December actually. So there you go. You guys don't have much time left.
Yeah, not much time left.
She said, so let's get to that. Well, I have one more question I definitely wanted to ask on my list here. Last one here.
Okay.
I really don't have a thing I want to do after Japan. I want to live in Japan forever. Is it okay to be truthful about that on the SOP? That's tough. That's a tough one for me. I'm not sure.
It is in the sense that it's honest, but it's naive because I'm assuming this person has not been to Japan yet. Now, some people have. They've done a month during high school or they've done a year abroad during college. If you've had some prior experience and you really just know Japan's for you, then maybe you can talk to that a little bit in the SOP, like based on my prior experience and yada, yada, yada. But if it's your first time, there is no guarantee that Japan is going to be a good fit for you. So it just is incredibly naive to say that, you're going to go and, it makes it sound like you just think Japan is this wonderland fantasy world of goodness.
Yeah.
And of course, there are many ways that it is, but there are many ways that it's not. And I think the only thing you could be truthful about in your SOP in that situation is to say, my life goal is to go into JET to learn more about Japan, study the language while I'm working as a teacher, get to know the country and the people, and hopefully that will lead to other job opportunities in Japan after I finish my time as a JET, because I could see myself living there long term.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Something like that. And you just have to temper it down a little bit, because you don't want to seem like you're just some wide-eyed innocent who, there's so many reasons people end up going home after a year. You just never know.
Yeah. All right, Jason. So I'm going to give chat. You have allowed 2 more minutes to ask a question if you have a serious one. Yeah. Someone said, "Hey, I'm coming to find a bride." So, you can't say stuff like that, obviously. Bending the truth.
You don't want to be Japanese. No, I'm not going to say that. That's terrible.
Oh.
No, of course you do.
Deep takes. Let's give someone a chance to write a real question in there. What's your schedule like? Give us a feel for what's your schedule like tomorrow. Normal Monday.
Actually, it's interesting that you did this. I just filmed today my 10-year anniversary video for YouTube.
There you go.
I'm going to put it up on Myargonauts, my main channel, probably tonight or tomorrow. I'm giving away a few things, including the T-shirt that I'm wearing. Not this one because it's smelly, but a brand new version of it.
Let me put the link.
And my sumo channel will crank up in mid-November with the final bus show of the year. I'm really into the sport of sumo, and I have a whole separate channel for that on YouTube where I show the matches and talk about them in English. And it's really grown almost past my regular Myargonauts channel now. It's really grown by leaps and bounds. So I'm going to go to Fukuoka in November to see live sumo, so that's something fun coming up. There's a few other YouTubers out there, Mully, Warmoth Strat, and Busan Kevin, who were having a meetup in Kobe in like December 28th, right in the middle of winter. I'm not going home for winter; it's too short.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go meet those guys and have some fun for a few days in Kobe. So yeah, some fun stuff coming up here at the end of the year. Rogue One is coming out. Star Wars, what up? So yeah, it'll be a good end of the year.
Yeah. How about the Star Trek? Are you excited about that?
I just went to see Beyond. I now live in a town about a half an hour away from an IMAX theater, which is wonderful for me because I'm a big screen guy, and I like Beyond. I thought it was really fun, It didn't open here though for like 3 months after it opened in America, which is a bummer about Japan sometimes.
Yeah, so you gotta get used to that.
Yeah, but luckily Rogue One is opening on the same day, so we do have some day and date stuff that's the same as the rest of the world.
We did get a question, so this is gonna be the final one for Jason here.
All
right. Let him go to sleep. If you failed to get into JET, they said we don't want you here. Can you find out the reason why?
No.
Yeah.
You really can't. They're not going to be specific because a lot of people apply again. And what happens is, I had one of these guys in my interview session. He got the interview again for the second year. A lot of people, they don't even get the interview the first time around, and then the next time they get it or whatever. I've known people that have applied 3 times. The big thing about JET is if you get it and you say no, you can't ever apply again, or at least not for like 5 years or something.
Yeah, don't disrespect.
So don't turn it down. I've had people, because off the coast of Shimane are these little islands called the Oki Islands, and people get put out there and they'll be like, I don't want to be on some island, So, but it's just your foot in the door, So anyway, the question of will you ever be able to find out? No, and it drives some people crazy. Like, was it something in my application? Was it my SOP? All you can do is redo it and apply again if you want to, but you do need to change a few things on that second attempt because they'll ask in your interview, for instance, like you applied a year ago and you didn't get in. What's different? What's happened in the past year? What's changed? Why should we accept you now when we didn't accept you before, type of thing.
Yeah, it's such an easy question for
So
the interview, so you just get ready for it. And also just have as many, I say have as many people look at it as you can, Like, look at it one more
yeah,
time, say, what's the
yeah,
weakest point, What's the
yeah.
weakest point here?
Look at all these things I did. Sometimes it's an obvious something. I used to, when I was needing money, I would read SOPs. I'd charge people $20 or whatever, and read it and do a pass and a rewrite. And some of them were god awful.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm doing now. And I've definitely seen some that are like,
And it's
yeah.
like really like, yeah, I mean, just bad English and just like no focus, and so you got to look at that. I think is one of the main things. And what were your grades like? What were your other things on the app like? So yeah, they're not going to tell you though. So sorry.
Yeah. Okay, we got one. This one's really short. Last one.
Okay.
How many times would you apply before you give up on Jet altogether?
Well, I would say apply twice. Definitely apply twice. Definitely don't get discouraged if you don't make it in the first time. It's a very competitive program. I think 2,000 or something people applied to the LA consulate the year I did, and we took 100.
So you think about that. It's 5% right there.
5%, yeah. So it's still a very competitive program, depending on what country you are in the world, but in America especially. So don't get discouraged. Try again. If you don't make it the second time, there's probably something not right about the way you're approaching it or something. But there are other ways to come to Japan. Don't give up on Japan.
Yeah.
Even if Jet turns you down, you can still come to Japan other ways. And I would say maybe shift your focus. And there are definitely dispatch companies that would probably like you,
Oh
et
yeah.
cetera, et cetera. So twice. I can't really see applying a third time unless you just are really.
I think like then you get into like do you want to be in Japan that much? I mean, 'cause there's other ways to get there, not the jet program. Of
Yeah,
course, they're
you've
not
got
as
to do
good.
something in that year. Like you've got to
Yeah,
wait
yeah,
the whole process again. So it's like you've got to. You can't just kind of keep your life on hold forever.
yeah.
So yeah, I'd say applying again 1 year later is one thing, but after that, I would say either come to Japan some other way, or go, oh well, and live your life where you are.
There you go. So on that note, let's finish it up. Jason, thanks for hanging out tonight. You shared your
All
knowledge with us, your master knowledge of Jet. Hopefully, people listening out there find something that got some value out of this and can get to Japan like Jason did all those years ago,
Yes.
and can have fun because it is
All
fun.
right.
All right, Jason, thanks for hanging out tonight.
Thanks for your time.
See ya.
See you guys.